Right now, we're standing in front of the archaeological site called Barriles. The Cacique tomb is not too far away from the site Barriles. And here we are in an excavation done in 2001 by a group of German archaeologists in the site called Barriles. I'm standing here with Anna Hawks, and she has that National Geographic magazine from 1950. Anna?
Okay, yes, this magazine have a lot of information, very special by the National Geographic group. It's Dr. Sterling with some helping, also checking and date pieces from Sitio Barriles in 1949. The ceremonial center, 600 before Christ. And here is a kind of cave where the National Geographic discovered the author. He is here cleaning the tape.
We're in the town Volcan, and we'll be going to the ancient cave and tomb of Cacique El Quibían Malchia. And this is where it all began. When Marco Montezuma and his brother were digging for a well, they heard an echo. When they opened the rock slab, they found this amazing cave. This whole area was covered with rock and mud. After excavation, we were able to explore this ancient cave and tomb. As we enter this ancient tomb, I will show you some of the relics that were discovered. In this part of the cave is the tomb of the cacique. Inside we found the sarcophagus, and inside was his mummified body, which is over 2,600 years old. The sarcophagus was gilded in gold, which was an ancient practice to perfectly preserve the content inside the tomb. In the scrolls, we were able to identify the cacique's name, Malchia, and where he came from. The translation of the scrolls allowed us to identify the people that followed the great cacique. And here we are at the other end of the cave, and these were some of the rocks that covered this side of the cave.
Hi, I am Dr. Maria Rosario, and I am an anthropologist. I am currently working for the Fort David Museum. Right now, we're having an exhibition upstairs for the Cacique Malchia artifacts. And now I will show you some of the artifacts that were found in the Cacique tomb on display in the museum. And here we have one of the items that was found in the Cacique tomb. Here we have a parchment scroll with hieroglyphics that we were able to translate. Here on this side, we have one of the boxes that were found in the Cacique tomb, which is gilded in gold.
Good evening. To start with, I will tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Dr. Maria Rosario, and I am an anthropologist. I specialize in the research of pre-Colombian civilization in Central America. I would like to thank those from the foundation of the Castilla de Oro who organized this archaeological convention here today in Panama. On the early morning around 5 a.m. on the 13th of October 2011, two young indigenous men, Marcos Montezuma and his brother Wilfredo, started the day like any other on the Comarca Nave Bugle reservation. These two brothers decided to head downtown and look for work. It was common for Marcos and his brother to visit the farms and ask for work. This day, a farmer who had known the two brothers and had worked for him in the past had invited them again to work on his farm. This time, the farmer asked the two Nave men to dig a water well, or as we say, un pozo. However, what Marcos and Wilfredo were not expecting while digging the water well was to stumble on the greatest archaeological discovery in the world. What makes this archaeological discovery so important is the evidence found in the tomb of a mummified great cacique called Malchia. This mummified cacique was a member of a lost civilization that discovered the Americas over 2,000 years before Christopher Columbus. Throughout the archaeological international community, this discovery was raised many questions and excitement. The first discovery of pre-Colombian artifacts that proved the Phoenicians discovered Panama before Christopher Columbus. In the tomb of Cacique El Quibían Malchia, the archaeologists found two golden chests. One is a sarcophagus with ancient scrolls inside. The scrolls were preserved perfectly because of the sealed sarcophagus covered in gold, and the tomb was sealed with volcanic rocks, keeping a perfect cool temperature all year round. In the ancient scrolls, the hieroglyphics tells the history of the existence of a Phoenician community living in Chiriquí around 2,600 years ago. This group of Phoenicians set sail from the Middle East and landed in Panama. The ancient sarcophagus is made in an Egyptian-designed rectangular box and covered in gold. The sarcophagus was also connected to another wooden rectangular box, which is also covered in gilded gold. The layer of gold varied in thickness, from heavy sheet for the face and wings of the two-winged mat to a thin layer of sheet of the finest gold leaf over the sarcophagus. The two-winged mat was also personified as a goddess regulating the stars in Egyptian mythology. These two ancient golden artifacts were taken out of the tomb of the Cacique Malchia and sent to a scientific laboratory owned by Fort David Museum. Thank you. The archaeologists assigned to examining the two ancient golden chests never could imagine what they would find inside. When the seal of the lid of the sarcophagus was broken and slowly lifted away from its base, there was a gasp from the archaeologists. What they found underneath was the mummified remains of the Cacique El Quibían Malchia, and also perfectly preserved various ancient parchment scrolls wrapped in the skin of the ocelot. When the archaeologists opened the second ancient wooden chest, they found ancient religious relics of Hebrew origins. At this time, I will not go into details regarding those ancient religious artifacts found in the second golden chest. The specimens were still under close examination, but I say those items found have confounded even our best forensic anthropologists and the scientists so much that there is nothing on this earth to compare with those findings. I am referring to the items in the second chest that are living organisms, and those organisms are so well preserved with no form of nourishment needed to sustain them. There is no fungus or bacteria inside the chest, so it is a very unusual environment that preserves the living organism. We still have not yet identified those living organisms. But when the forensic scientists do, they will release their findings to the public. The tomb of the Cacique El Quibian Malchia is in a cave that was sealed at both ends with rock and mud, so it created a perfect environment to preserve the ancient artifacts found inside. In Central America, the greatest threat to archaeological sites in rural areas is the lack of understanding of how to preserve those sites from being destroyed by earth-moving equipment like agricultural machinery. Many farmers have accidentally destroyed fragile ancient archaeological relics. When archaeology became integrated into the planning process and farmers were made responsible for recording archaeological sites for destruction conditions requiring archaeological recording, such as excavation, have been an integral part of the process. Such conditions are only applied when regarded as necessary by the professional archaeologists advising the local farmers. However, in many cases, the farmers have not been given the resource to educate on how to identify ancient relics on their lands. We hope in the near future that we can set up workshops to try to educate the farmers on how to protect the archaeological sites from damage before any form of excavation. Thank you for attending this meeting, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them after the meeting.